energized. Power extreme.
Welcome back to Retro Wednesday. The Titanium here. This is Mike. Today I want to talk to you about the new batch of Ramen Toy 80s Commanders, aka Modern Centurions in the 6-inch scale. We're going to talk about these, how they are improved, the differences, the changes, the pluses and minuses, all of this coming up. Alright, so here it is in the packaging. It is packaged as a 3-pack, and here it is from the side. Ramen Toy, item number 80C04. It's a nice set of 3. There's the art on the back. You see 80s Commanders on the top. And yeah, looking pretty good. And let's do a quick comparison to the old packaging. Now, the old style packaging came individually, kind of like this, and so that's how they looked in the package before the original run, and these will not get made again. You will not see this package. You will not see this color scheme again. So I don't know if they're going to redo those or not, but that's the way they're going as a full set, and I think it's a pretty good idea. Once out of the box, there's the lower level that has all of this stuff in there just like this, and maybe so I can remember exactly how everything goes in. Good to videotape that. Shiny reflective background. And then you've got these guys up front doing their thing. So we're going to get them out and see how they look. Okay, so first of all, getting all 3 of them out of one box and putting them together was way faster and way easier than doing separate boxes. But the improvements on these guys is, well, first off, the color. I like the color scheme. The colors of them a little bit better. They're more vibrant, more like the toy. I was thinking the older ones, the original ones, were more like the show. But looking at this, there are some differences. We'll do the differences side by side, but I do want to show a few things right away. First off, the head sculpt is new, and then here's how the helmet comes off and on. And there's only one head. The originals had 2 different heads, so I like that. That's awesome. Now, looking at his head sculpt, it looks pretty good. You know, these aren't going to be exactly like the show, and they really probably shouldn't be, but pretty darn close, and that looks fantastic. Also, I love the fact that the helmets, this has 2 tabs at the top and then like some earpieces that kind of hold it in, so that's kind of a cool bit right there. And then you can just plug it right back on, and you do see that there is glass in there, or plastic. It's clear plastic in the visor, which is so cool, something we didn't have before. Now this fell off. Now, not that it's really all that loose, but I just didn't push it in that deep. And I do want to say that these are small pegs that fit in these holes, so it's not nearly as durable as, say, the Kenner. I don't think. I haven't broken anything yet because I'm super careful. So with that, let's go ahead and, as we look at the figure, look at articulation though. So the head, there's a longer neck, and we'll do that comparison later too, but that's kind of cool, gives them a little bit taller look to them. Now, you can only get so much range going like that, but if you go like this, you get the Power Extreme pose, and you can turn the hands and fists and all that kind of stuff however you want to get Power Extreme in there, like this. And you can get the Power Extreme pose, so that works pretty good. And so getting down to the joints on the elbows are double jointed, so that's great. You do have the bicep swivel, you have the hand that's on a ball joint, so you can do whatever you want with it. Swappable hands, we'll get into that here in just a bit. And taking this off and getting into waist swivel. Now, you don't have an ab crunch, so that's something that people are getting used to these days, but instead of an ab crunch, you have forward and back. You don't have a ridiculous amount of movement in the hip there, but you do have the thigh swivel, and you have a double jointed, mostly a double jointed knee right there, and then you have some rocker back and forth a little bit. Now, there's not a huge amount in the foot because these are holding up a lot of weight, so the actual build will get it to where it can only go so far so it doesn't fall over, which I like because they do carry some hefty stuff on there. So putting this back on and being careful, let's take a look at some size comparisons. So here he is next to a G.I. Joe Classified. This is Major Blood, and then we have original O-Ring G.I. Joe Sergeant Slaughter, which we'll probably hear about him tomorrow in G.I. Joe June. They'll probably announce that they're going to make him something like that. Maybe it's Triple T, who knows. But looking at this here, The size of it is supposed to be about the size of G.I. Joe Classifieds, and he's still a little bit short, and that's just is what it is. But all the other figures for the Centurion's collection will match this, aside from the retro, which will be the same size as the vintage. Okay, so for the first comparison I want to make is to the vintage figure, and if you look, it doesn't match the toy colors exactly either. It is even more vibrant than the original toy, which I'm still okay with. I love the color they went with blue. I would have liked a little bit more of a silver, but I'm actually okay with the silver that they used, or the dark gray, or the color that they went. So that's pretty good also. Moving around to the back here, and of course you can configure this however you want. I could put that gun up here, I believe, and looking at the back, looks pretty good. It's not exactly the same, and I will share that all three of the 80s Commanders have the same exact bodies, and the vintage ones have different bodies and different molding for each character. And comparing the head sculpts, they are very close in a way, and yet very different in a way. Different expression. You could think it's the same person with slightly different hair and a different hairdo, and he's older. So that's pretty cool. Here's a helmet comparison. As you can see, it is much closer to, say, a vintage style helmet. Of course, without all the stuff on there, but it looks good. It looks a lot like it. And the new figures, the new helmets are different for each of the figures and characters. So I've been following this project, very excited about following this project since day one. I gotta say, I'm even more excited about what's to come out of this project from Ramen Toys. But this is the prototype. They keep saying it's a test shot, a first test shot or something like that. But there's some loose points to this. It wasn't bad, but from where they came from this to what we got with this, I think all the joints are so much smoother on this guy. So here's the old head sculpt that they had for him. I don't know if you see it very well. It's kind of hard to see these head sculpts in there, and there's the new head sculpt. And then I'll show you what's on the 80s Commander that's out of the package. And that was the bald head. Here's the ball. I like the way they're doing it now. It's so much better. But, you know, this is just it was their first trial run. They tried a whole lot of ideas all at once, and then they carried over what worked and changed what didn't, which I think is good, and I like that. So that's how we get progress in this. All right, so let's just be honest. Very few collectors are going to display them with their helmets off. The helmets on is usually how people display either the vintage ones, but with this, I'm glad they did the head sculpts. Now, looking at these side by side, there are quite a few differences, so we're going to get into them. Obviously, the color is much more vibrant. Over here is kind of a darker, more muted color, more of a realistic, gritty kind of an outlook, which was the goal of Ace and the designers team, the design team over there at Ramen Toy. Looking at them from the side, they have the same body, of course, but the different color scheme, not having a wash, and some different paint apps. So we're going to get into that, but you can see the different helmets, and there's pluses and minuses to each one of these different versions, and so we're going to get into those too. So moving this around here, there he is from the back, and there is the different angles and versions of the two different versions of Ace McCloud. So one of the differences that I don't really think is an improvement, it's actually a step backwards, is that they painted kind of the turbines in there on both sides and didn't paint it on the new one. So that, I don't know if that was an oversight, a mistake, or hey, we only have this many paint apps. I do know the wash they did themselves, from my understanding. They did the wash themselves, the factory didn't do it. So I'm not sure what paint apps we got in addition to this, but we did get a few new parts, like, you know, the saluting hand and all that kind of stuff. So that might be kind of the cost trade-off kind of thing right there. And the next thing I want to point out is they're a lot smoother. Like, the joints just move smooth, and when you stop moving it, it just kind of stops. It's something about a joint tolerance. Over here, there's more resistance, and it's just not smooth. As you can see, it's moving the whole leg just to do that. And then over here, now what I have to say though is where those joints are tighter, they are a little bit tighter. So maybe the originals could possibly be a little bit more stable. I just like the smoothness. It just feels a little bit more premium, a little bit higher quality. And with the saluting hand, Ace can now salute where they cannot. And the other hand they had before that was sort of close, you have this one here with the splayed hand. And that could sort of work if you kind of wanted to use the saluting with the splayed hand. So although Ace is my favorite of the three, I do like them all. So we're going to get into Max. Now, I don't remember all the names that they gave them. They gave them backstories and all that kind of stuff. But I'm just going to call him the Centurion name that means a lot to me and the reason I really bought him. So looking at this guy, more vibrant green, looks really good. The colors on the weapons are much more vibrant. The difference between the colors on the weapons on this guy and on Jake are much different than with Ace. Ace, the weapons accessories are a lot closer, but these are just wildly different, which is still pretty cool. Pretty cool. It's pretty good. This missile does not fire, so no firing missiles. We do not have paint in here, so... But it looks really good. The way it's done, it looks great. It looks fantastic. He has his own different sculpted helmet, which is awesome too. And so everything else is about the same, like all the articulation, all the different hands. But we want to do something different. I am going to swap a hand on this. I'm going to give him a right splayed hand. So what you do is you gently pop it off, and there is a ball socket right there. And then you pop it on. It's that simple. You get all the articulation out of the ball joint. It's tight, it feels right, and it doesn't feel like it's going to breaking off. The way they did it, it works out really well, and I like that. So I'm not one to change hands out, change heads out. I'm actually a guy that likes things stock, a collector that likes stock stuff and stock stuff looking good, but this is pretty cool. I have to admit, it's something you didn't get in the vintage era, and it's kind of stuff that's going on with modern figures, and it works great, especially with this scale. Obviously, you wouldn't want posable fingers, so yeah, it looks great. First up, we're going to go side by side with the Vintage Max in a comparison. So side by side in comparison to Vintage Max, looking pretty good. And what you see is a very close representation of the helmet. Now, it does taper off down below, and I like that for Ace and for Jake, because they do have side mounted stuff that they usually mount right there. But if he wants to mount something on the side there, it'll mount and work better. So that's something good that kind of sometimes it gets into some trouble with even the vintage figures. Now, obviously, greater posability. Now it's more vibrant. This is more vibrant, but I think the G1 figure is even more vibrant of a green than this. But do we really want it to have gone this green with it? So I don't know. I'm happy with the color that they use and the color that they chose. I think it's perfect. Looking at the back here, now it's a much darker kind of a blue for Kenner, the original one, but this is a little bit lighter, more of a pastel, and I'm okay with that. The oranges are pretty close. Again, we don't need it to be exactly the same, just kind of an homage, a color palette homage that's closer than what we got the first time, and I'm pretty happy about that. Here goes from the back, and yeah, pretty much what you expect. As you can see, you're going to see with each one of these vintage figures that they look different and these look the same, and I'm still okay with that to keep costs down. Now for the head reveal, this is a new head. This is a lot closer. A lot closer. I gotta say, I'm happy. It's close enough that we know it's Max, but it's not exactly the same. And, you know, for reasons that I'm not going to speak of right now, that's good. Take a licking. And keep on standing. Now, why am I looking like I'm having trouble balancing this guy? Because all that weight on the back makes him back heavy. It's just basic logic, physics that you can't overdo. You can get him in great standing poses. It takes a little bit, but if you balance the weight a little bit better, like put the launcher on maybe his arm or something, then you would have a whole lot less problem with balancing him. But not that big of a deal. Now, getting into comparison to the original 80s Commander. Okay, first off, I'm going to compare the head sculpts, and I just don't have the other heads available from the ones that are loose, so the box one's all I got handy right now. But trying to get a good look at this. A lot of people didn't like this head sculpt. They said it looked more like Iron Man or something, although it had a goatee and all that kind of stuff, not just a mustache. There were some issues with it not matching, but you know, the thing was, we never even saw the head sculpts before it came out, and so with that, it's one of the things that now Ramen is making changes. They are going to make sure they show every bit of the product before the pre-order goes up. Like, this is exactly what it's going to look like. There might be some minor changes, but this is the head sculpt going forward if you don't like the head sculpt. So that was a big deal. That was a big point of contention, but I still liked the 80s Commanders, even with the heads looking a little bit less like the cartoon and less like we expected. Side by side with the original 80s Commander version of Max. You can see the face. Now, I think it's just a generic face that goes underneath the helmet, so they all look the same, but that's the way that one goes. And here's how they look with their helmets on, and I do want to show that the helmets are different. The original ones had one helmet and one head that was reproduced for all three 80s Commanders side by side by side. And there it goes. And I do want to point out that I think they all had, the original ones had a little bit of fitment issues for backpacks and stuff. So this one did not have any issues with any fitment for backpacks. I do knock stuff off here and there, but that's because I don't want to push them in too tight. So also getting these to stand, same issues. I do feel like these are easier to get to stand than the original ones too, because of the smooth and flowing. But it is character to character though, because the original Ace, that thing stands like a champ. Just looking at the different colors. So as you can see, the yellows are much different. Well, okay, I said I just had to talking about standing. And he does that. The yellows are much different, much cleaner. The wash on the yellow and the orange shows up more than some of the other colors. So that's how that looks. And again, we have this painted here as to where it wasn't painted on here. So there's some pluses to the original run too. And some people like this more real world look. Now that fell and this popped off. Looking at the back, yeah, I just like the more vibrant colors, and then, but there are the people that do like this real world look, and those people will probably be trying to chase down the original set because they do look more grit, grime, real world. So this is the Max comparison to the first run and the second one, and I really like it. That back heavy stuff there. Yeah, but I really do like the improvements. I like them both actually. If this is all we ever got, I still would have been happy. Getting into Jake and whatever the name that they made up for him. This is the sleeper hit. I really did like this figure, and especially this sort of orangish color. I think they nailed the color. It looks fantastic. But looking at him, I like everything about it. Now the missile doesn't fire. It just goes in like so, and this is what the missile looks like. Super small compared to the original vintage one, but it's supposed to be smaller. That's more show accurate. In fact, show accurate would have made this thing half the size, but I do think they felt like you're not getting enough out of it by making it that small. They did shrink this thing down quite a bit, which is show accurate. And they did put a piece of plastic glass, which was the same on the original. My only real complaint about this is that this flimsy piece gets kind of bent up. If you want it straight, you might have to heat it up with like a blow dryer or something, then put it under cold running water while you're holding it straight, and that will straighten that back up. So that's kind of the same thing that I had to do to maybe adjust some tabs on the original ones to make everything tab in just right. But looking at this overall, it looks fantastic. I really do like the way it looks overall, everything about it. And so yeah, sleeper hit. And Jake's not my favorite Centurion. He's my third favorite, but third favorite's pretty high. Get into this vintage comparison side by side. First I wanted to show is the head sculpt, and I want to point out the head sculpt is real close. All these head sculpts are really close and very, very satisfying. I do have the head sculpts coming for the originals, and so they're going to have the wash and the same colors are going to match, and it's going to fix all the problems that I'm having with the heads and stuff when that comes, and I so look forward to that. So that's on the way too. Now I do want to show that the way the helmet is on the 80s Commander, the fact that it's kind of goes in a bit. You see at the lower, it's narrowed right here. With the original one, it's not, and so you start running into issues. He is solid. He stands solid. I just bumped it, but runs into issues here with these kind of shoulder pieces and stuff. So it's like real tight right there. That's the Kinner. I've always had that problem with Kinner. I'm sure I'm doing it wrong or something, but with this piece is not hindered at all, and I like that. And you can also kind of hang up the idea of mounting this on the shoulder, but it will mount. The vintage one will mount on the backpack and work okay, but this mounts actually on the shoulder. And they did eliminate, here they are from the back, and you can see different design for Jake than the other three from the back. They did eliminate this tab. There's like a tab right here, so you can plug this into the chest. But they eliminated that to make it look more real world because I guess you're just not going to use it like that. So that's a difference. That's a change. Well, it's not a change from the first set. It's a change from vintage. All right, so here they are, and because of the weight distribution, this one stands so much better. So much easier to just like pick them up and then just set them down, and he stands, and he might fall with a bump of the table, but he's not falling. So with that, the weight distribution is better. It's a whole lot easier. I do want to say he is shipped with both of his closed fist hands, but you get all these. You get kind of a gripping set of hands, and then you get a splayed set of hands to go along with it, and you get the saluting hand right there. So all of that, and I've kind of tried to spread this out so I can show some little bit of different stuff with each one, since they do come with a lot of the similar things. But side by side, of course, they have all of the same accessories, and they both have the plastic right here. But you're gonna look, this is orange and very to the G1 or original vintage, and this is more yellow. Now, at first I wasn't really put off by the yellow at all, but when you put it side by side with the vintage, you're like, well, yeah, why is it so yellow? So with that, it's kind of not really that big of a deal to me. But when you see them side by side, I'm like, wow, I like that orange so much. It's so amazing. It's so great. It just gives me I remember it. But here he is with the yellow. So it's kind of cool to have a variation. And in fact, a lot of collectors that collect stuff like variations. So seeing as how the first run they only made 1,000 of each, or something, maybe something like that. I don't know. I think 1,000 of each, but maybe 2,000 of each. But there's only a set amount out there. They won't make them in this color style ever again. So looking to the side, the darker greens, and this is more of a like the original Kinder green, and then the back of the helmet is green on this, but it's like gray. It didn't even match the weapons in the original run. And then if you look at the backpack and the launcher, so this is closer to the original, but this is like a whole different color. Oddly enough, I kind of like this color, and I might eventually I might mix and match pieces and make my ultimate figures down the road. I'm a little too afraid of doing all that just now, but because I might mix them all up and forget about it and all that kind of stuff. But I like to keep things together and know where everything is and all that kind of stuff. So, but still, really, it's a great improvement. There's good and bad about each one, and there's mostly good about this. But I do like that color for some weird reason. Okay, I swapped them. I swapped the backpack and the launcher. What do you think? Does that look better? Does that look cool? Like the orange, it's kind of bright up here. The orange with the lighter tan. I think that looks even better. That looks awesome. Lots of fun. That's what the cherry on is all about. It's the combinations that you can do. And of course, your wildest imagination doing all kinds of crazy stuff with these things. That was so much fun back in the day. And it can be kind of fun today. So this has been my look at the 80s Commanders. This is from Ramen Toy at ramentoy.com, and I'll have a link down below, but this is really a great improvement to the original first set that they put out. They put out a small number, and they did a good job with those. They took the feedback. They made these even better. They made these for the fans, the way the fans want them. And looking at them, I really do like the way these look. I like everything about them. The only thing I would like to see different is them just slightly taller. But again, the molds are the molds, and the molds are made. They did extend the necks a little bit, so they are slightly like 1/4 of an inch taller because the necks are a little bit taller. But I do like the colors, the vibrant colors. I do like the extra saluting hand. It's kind of cool that they put it in there, and I like the fact that it feels like smoother joints on all of the figures. And with that, I look forward to everything that Ramen Toy makes going forward. I buy 2 of everything that they make, and probably with a few things I'm going to buy 3 or 4 of. But looking at this, is it worth $100? Well, now you have to pay the $100 if you're not in on the early bird price. So is it worth $100? I say yes if you're a Centurions collector. If you're a Marvel collector, or if you're a G.I. Joe Classified collector and you might want these mixed in or something, this is definitely not for you, not worth $100 to you. If you're only used to spending $20 a figure, if you are used to buying Mezco kind of figures, if you're used to buying SH Figuarts and those kinds of things, then this is kind of that level. And with that, it is worth $100 for that. If I couldn't get the early bird price and I had to buy them for $100, yes, I would still buy. I just probably wouldn't buy as many, but I would still buy them because they are very satisfying. They're very awesome, and they're made in such low production numbers that it's kind of like if you get them now, or you may never get them, or you might be looking at stupid prices on the secondary market years down the road. So with that, I think that it's a really awesome job that Ramen Toy has done, and they've listened to the customers and done a much better job. I look forward to the Silverhawks, the Mask, and of course the Retro Series figures. We also have coming up, we have their Hacker, and we have their Traumatizer, and I don't know how many Traumatizers I'm going to get, but that's going to be really exciting, a lot of fun. So stay tuned for more Ramen Toys coming from the Tidarium Hangar. And Tidarium Hangar out.
Once it locks onto a target's unique heat pattern, it won't give up. And there isn't a force field that can stop it, not even Skybolts.
I'd hate to think what Doc Terra'd do with this.
Jake Rockwell calling Skybolt. Meanwhile, Weasel Pronto.
Ace above you, look out!
Just a little more, and now!
That's it. There is nothing wrong with Sky Knight. There's energized.
Power extreme!
The Centurions!